If you think, how would a contemporary reader of the Gospels, how would one of the first readers of the Gospels have thought of it? What sort of literature would they have thought it was? I think the answer that is actually very widespread among scholars now is that they would have seen them as biographies. And the importance of that, of course, is they would expect this to be a record of what happened. They would be looking for historical information. They would not have expected it to be mere legend or an entertaining bit of fiction or other kinds of literature that you could be reading. The Gospels look like a biography.
Luke, I know, begins his Gospel by claiming that his work is based on the reports of autoptai, eyewitnesses. Mm-hmm. Can we take that seriously?
Yes, I think we should. Because it connects very easily with the way historians in the ancient world viewed the writing of history. They actually thought that you could only really write contemporary history, in other words, history within the lifetime of people who had been involved, participants in the events. History later than that is not really good history. You can only write good history within that span of time when there are eyewitnesses still around. And it's also interesting that what Luke actually does is describe them as the eyewitnesses and ministers of the word, which implies that these eyewitnesses of Jesus' ministry and the events of his death and resurrection, these eyewitnesses had a role in the early Christian communities. They were ministers of the word, that is, they were giving their eyewitness testimony. They were the people whom someone like Luke, but also quite ordinary Christians or Christian preachers would look to as the kind of authoritative sources for knowing about Jesus. And that's, I think, very important, that these were not just people who had been eyewitnesses and then, 30 years later, Luke comes along and asks them. They're actually people who had been telling their testimony all the time. And that's an important point, I think. Sometimes people give the impression that between Jesus and the Gospels, there's this long period of time in which all kinds of things could have happened, and how can we trust, traditions handed down over that period? Well, actually, it's not a terribly long period. It's within living memory. That's the key thing, I think. And that, I think, is one reason the Gospels were written when they were. They had to be written within living memory. That was the way you did history.